Here's your money briefing for Thursday, May 18th. I'm J.R. Whalen for the Wall Street Journal. The share of marriages with women making more money has grown significantly over the past 50 years. WSJ personal finance reporter Julia Carpenter joins us to discuss how it's affecting marriages. So, Julia, what sparked this trend of women making the same or more than men in their marriage?
We've seen this slow growth. Women are attending college more. Women are gaining advanced degrees. And as a result, they're better positioned to land these higher paying jobs.
In your reporting, you cite research showing that opposite-sex married couples in the late 1960s and 70s were 70% more likely to divorce when wives earned the same or slightly more than their husbands, compared with couples where the husband earned more. How has that changed?
We've seen a pretty dramatic reversal of that trend. So the 80s, we saw the number drop slightly. And then for couples married in the 90s, the divorce rate for those with female breadwinners was 4% higher than male breadwinners. So a pretty significant drop.
Why was the divorce rate in that income scenario so much higher?
So researchers point to a couple different things. There's social factors, of course, greater acceptance of women in the workplace, greater advancement of women in the workplace, husbands feeling less threatened by women earning more. But there's also economic factors, It used to be that single family could subsist off of one breadwinner. It was ideal that one person would work and one person would stay at home. Now, both partners really have to be maximizing their income potential in order for these families to reach these milestones that were once much more easily accessible.
Yeah, it's never been cheap to live, but how have rising household expenses played a role here?
It's pretty significant for parents. I think that's where most people can see their household balance sheets change most dramatically. Childcare costs really vary depending on where you live, but as of the most recent numbers, daycare can cost anywhere from $8,000 a year to nearly $20,000 a year. So that's a significant cost for many parents.
You mentioned a moment ago that men have felt threatened by their wives making more than them. What's the story behind that?
It's a pretty traditional gender role story. We see that men feel threatened if they are not the sole provider. They feel that that is somehow a statement about their role in the marriage, their masculinity, their ability to provide. But I was speaking with one couple and they both work in the library world. She earns more than him. She's a tribal archivist. And she said that she was a little nervous actually to tell him when she first exceeded him in salary because we had had all of this messaging about how men feel in these relationships. She didn't want to challenge the great relationship they had. And what he said I thought was so telling and really sort of indicative of how many men feel now. He said, more money for her is more money for us. More money for me is more money for us. So he saw it instead as a statement about himself as a partner, more of a celebration for their household.
Now, looking at women specifically, they've held prestigious, highly paid positions for decades. But what has changed for them in particular over time in terms of marriage?
When you look at research that examines women in the C-suite, historically, we've seen that those women are actually likelier to be divorced. When they reach the upper echelons of their profession, something has happened to their marriages along the way. Either them earning more than their husband led to divorce, or the power imbalance in their relationship created some sort of acrimony. But that's changing now. We're seeing now that as women advance, they're likelier to stay married.
When you spoke to couples in this income situation, did they talk about any kind of an adjustment or learning curve that helped them understand and come to the feeling that, yeah, this could actually work?
I think for younger couples, they have more models to point to, and that was something that came up frequently in my interviews. For couples married in the 2000s or later, the models of the 60s and 70s that we had discussed previously with those high divorce rates, those are much more in the past for these younger couples. And I actually spoke with one couple, they're engaged to be married, and they each had been the sole breadwinner or the primary breadwinner in their previous marriages. It's a couple named Sally and Luis. And when I spoke with Luis about this, he said that he really welcomed this change, that in his first marriage, he had felt the pressure, he had felt the burden of being the sole breadwinner. And now that his fiance makes nearly triple what he makes, he welcomes it. He sees the financial freedom it can afford their household. And he says that together they can sort of think about what this money can do for them as they plan for the future.
So as women take on a more prominent role in the workplace, what has this done to alleviate the gender pay gap?
So this is the complication here. Women still make less than men. According to the most recent data from Pew, women make 82% of what their male counterparts make. So we're seeing a slight change in that. And if you look at the research, especially looking at younger couples, Pew also has some research showing that millennial women at the very beginning of their careers sometimes out-earn their male peers. So there's something that happens later in women's careers. Either, again, the parenthood conversation, how they're going to afford childcare, if someone needs to stay home, if someone's going to drop out of the workforce temporarily, that disrupts women's earning power over time. We also know that women are frequently in lower paying industries than men. There are certain positions in certain industries that are seen as women's industries, and those pay less. So this isn't a story, unfortunately, that shows that more egalitarian marriages create more egalitarian workplaces and more egalitarian earnings for women. But we are seeing this slowly change over time.
That's Wall Street Journal personal finance reporter Julia Carpenter. And that's your Money Briefing. I'm J.R. Whalen for the Wall Street Journal.